On the 5th of May 2022, a 91-year-old man named Gene Lokken fell at his home in Wisconsin. He fractured his leg. He needed rehabilitation. After 19 days, an algorithm decided he had received enough care. His doctors disagreed. His family paid out of pocket. A year later, here is the part that should stop you. When patients appealed those denials, the algorithm was overturned more than 90% of the time, but only 0.2% ever appealed. The system was designed so its decisions looked final. This is not a story about a technology failure. It is a story about an ethical choice made before the code was written. If the algorithm decides who gets enough care, who decides the algorithm?
Let's get into it.
On the 5th of May 2022, Gene Lokken fell at his home in Wisconsin. He was 91. The fall fractured his leg. What happened next was not a story about a broken bone. It was a story about who gets to decide when a person has received enough care. This is the Hamberger Report. I'm Andreas Hamberger, Enterprise Architect and Governance Practitioner, Wellington. Lokken was admitted to hospital, then transferred for rehabilitation. His doctors assessed his fractures, fitted an ankle boot, and began physical therapy. The therapists noted he was slowly building strength. Continued therapy was medically necessary. He was not ready to go home. His treating physicians agreed. The algorithm did not. That algorithm is the start of every conversation this series is going to have, not because algorithms are uniquely dangerous, because the choice to deploy one, the choice about what it should optimize for, the choice about whose judgment it overrides, is an ethical choice. It is made before the system goes live. It is made by someone. It might be made by you. This is the first of 9 episodes built around a single working framework, that AI ethics is not philosophy in the abstract. It is a set of decisions made by practitioners with measurable consequences for the people those systems affect. United Health Group is the largest health insurer in the United States. In 2020, it acquired a company called Navi Health for $2.5 billion. Navi Health had built an AI system called NH Predict. NH Predict was trained on a database of 6 million patient records. It compared a patient's condition against historical data and generated a predicted length of stay for post-acute care. When the prediction expired, coverage ended. On approximately the 20th of July, 2022, after 19 days, NH Predict's prediction for Gene Lokken expired. United Health terminated his coverage. The stated reason, more inpatient days at the skilled nursing facility, were not medically necessary. His doctors disagreed. His physical therapist documented that he was still building strength. None of it mattered. To keep receiving care, his family paid out of pocket, approximately $12,000 to $14,000 per month for the next year. Gene Lokken died in July 2023. Here is the figure that should change how you think about this. When patients appealed NH Predict's denial decisions, those denials were overturned more than 90% of the time. Only 0.2% of policyholders ever filed an appeal. The system was designed so that its decisions looked final. Every AI system begins with a decision that has nothing to do with technology. Someone decides the system should exist. Someone defines what it will optimize for. Someone chooses what it will measure and what it will ignore. These are not engineering questions. They are ethical questions. They are answered consciously or by default before a single line of code is written. In Gene Lokken's case, the intent was legible. NH Predict was designed to predict the minimum viable length of post-acute care. It compared individual patients against a statistical population and generated a number. That number became a coverage decision. The system was not designed to assess whether Gene Lokken, specifically, needed more time. It was designed to assess whether statistically, patients like Gene Lokken were likely to need more time. The distinction is the difference between medicine and actuarial science. It is also the difference between treating a person as a person and treating a person as a data point. This is the first of 4 dimensions this framework uses. Intent, what the system is designed to do, and whether the designer has interrogated the moral implications of that purpose. The technical question and the ethical question are not the same question. Conflating them serves neither. The technology industry has spent 2 decades operating under a philosophy it rarely examines. Move fast and break things was Facebook's internal motto until 2014, when it was quietly retired. The phrase was always presented as a statement about engineering culture. It was never presented as what it actually is, an ethical position. To move fast and break things is to declare that speed of deployment is more important than the consequences of deployment. It is to accept implicitly that the people affected by breakage are an acceptable cost. That position is workable when the things being broken are software features. It changes entirely when the things being broken are healthcare decisions, employment prospects, criminal justice outcomes, or the ability of a 91-year-old man to receive physical therapy for a fractured leg. AI deployment across these domains has outpaced ethical infrastructure by years. The Stanford AI Index for 2025 recorded that 78% of surveyed organizations were using AI in at least one business function, up from 55% 2 years earlier. In the same period, AI-related incidents rose 56.4% in a single year. Adoption is accelerating. So are the consequences of inadequate ethical reasoning. In 1980, David Collingridge identified a problem that still defines every serious debate about technology governance. He called it a dilemma, and the word is precise. It has 2 horns, and Gene Lokken's case demonstrates both. The first horn is the information problem. Early in a technology's development, when intervention is cheapest, we do not yet know enough about its consequences to justify regulation. The second is the power problem. By the time the consequences are visible, the technology is so embedded that changing it is prohibitively expensive. When Navi Health built NH Predict, no external body had the authority to assess what the system would do to individual patients. By the time Lokken's family went to court, the algorithm was embedded across United Health's Medicare Advantage program, affecting millions. The cost of meaningful change was no longer a design decision, it was a legal battle. As of April 2026, the court is still trying to compel the basic transparency that ethical design would have built in from the start. This is the structural reason late-stage ethics fails. Once a system is deployed, its ethical trajectory is largely set. The decisions that determine whether an AI system respects human dignity are made before deployment or not at all. The framework I will use across these 9 episodes organizes the ethical choice around 4 dimensions: intent, constraint, accountability, and consequence. They are not separate considerations. They form a causal sequence. And NH Predict demonstrates every link in the chain. Intent defined the direction. The system was designed to minimize the length of post-acute care coverage. That intent, unexamined, set the trajectory. Constraint determined whether the trajectory was bounded. NH Predict had no mechanism to override a denial when treating physicians disagreed. The algorithm's prediction was the operational ceiling. Accountability determined whether the boundary held under pressure. Internal documents allegedly showed employees were pressured to keep stays within 1% of the algorithm's prediction. Accountability existed on paper. Under pressure, it collapsed into compliance with the machine. Consequence revealed whether the first 3 were real or performative. For Gene Lokken, the consequence was a year of impoverishment and then death. For United Health, the consequence was a class action lawsuit filed 2 months after his insurance should have covered his care. The asymmetry tells you everything about which consequences the system was designed to measure. The argument I have just walked you through is in one sense simple. Every AI system embodies an ethical intent. That intent is set at the design stage. If the designer does not interrogate it, it defaults to the priorities of the organization funding the development. Speed, efficiency, cost reduction, competitive advantage. These are not inherently wrong priorities. They are not ethical reasoning. They are operational objectives. When they operate without ethical constraint, they produce Gene Lokken. They produce the 99.8% who never appeal. They produce the millions who never know an algorithm made a decision at all. The question is not whether practitioners can make a different choice. The question is whether they will. The first step is recognizing that the choice exists. Over the next 8 episodes, I will work through the frameworks that turn this from rhetoric into a usable design discipline, applied each week to a documented case. Gene Lokken did not fail to appeal because he accepted the algorithm's judgment. He failed to appeal because the system was designed so that not appealing was the path of least resistance. The intent was encoded in the architecture. The ethics were expressed in the outcome. The choice had already been made.
That is the Hamberger report for today. If this was useful, subscribe and hit the like button. It helps more professionals find the channel. You will find links to everything we covered in the description below. I am Andreas Hamberger, and I will see you tomorrow.
Like and subscribe.